Was 2025 the worst year for online businesses ever? That's the question we're answering on today's episode of the Profit Pillars Show. I'm your host, Parker Stevenson, CEO of the accounting firm for online businesses, Evolve Finance, and the author of the book, Profit Pillars. Now, before we jump into answering this question, I feel like I batched out so many episodes a couple months ago that this is the first episode that I wanted to kind of record really close to when we were going to actually launch the episode, because I wanted to get a chance to review 2025, get as much data. You know, it's middle of December as I record this. And so I wanted to really make sure I had as much just time to think about the year. And we did some pretty awesome things over the course of the last quarter or so to really understand what's been going on in the online business space. So I'm excited to talk about that a little bit today. And I also wanted to share a little bit of what I think 2026 is going to look like and where things are trending. Now, I'm just some dude on the internet. Sure, I run an accounting firm with my business partner, Corey, and I see a lot, but I don't see everything. So I'll be very curious in the YouTube comments or wherever you're seeing this. I'll be very curious to hear from you all. Like, what do you all think is going to happen? How do you feel 2025 has gone for your business? And where do you think the industry is headed in 2026? Now, to start with here, I do think it's important to just kind of define, well, what is an online business, at least for how we look at it at Evolve Finance. And so most of our clients are going to be businesses that are selling digital products or services online. So digital products are going to be anything where it's just there's no physical product aspect to it. That tends to be a big one for us. And then services. And so a lot of our clients sell services that can primarily be delivered online, but we also have some agencies and stuff like that do some in-person services, but we're talking about very modern small businesses here. People who are doing self-funded software startups or have software companies, all the way up to like big influencers, right? Where they don't really have a digital product or even a service. It's royalties and speaking income and things like that. So we don't have as much expertise in the e-com world. And when I say e-com, I mean like really selling physical products. We have some clients that are in that space, but I just don't speak to that because that's not the majority of our clients and that's not my expertise. But we are looking at a lot of people with lifestyle businesses, self-funded businesses, and businesses that are doing low six figures all the way up to low eight figures. That's really our bread and butter. What I've been able to analyze and review really my whole career. So that's going to be kind of what we're talking about when we say online business or a modern small business. And so if you are connected to this industry or this world at all, you have any sort of network or community in this space, then you've probably talked to some people that have had a rough year this year. And so what we did at Evolve Finance, the timing just kind of worked out. But this year in October, we launched our first ever version of our online business industry report. And just given that we have so much financial data that we can review as an accounting firm where we can look at the trends and themes across all of our clients' businesses, we want to share that data and obviously making sure that the data we're sharing doesn't put our clients' anonymity or financial security at risk, right? It's very macro, very general data points that we wanted to share with the industry as a whole. So if this episode is interesting to you and you want to dive deeper, you can get your own copy of the industry report, watch a replay of me presenting the data, all for free. Just click the link in this in the description for this video and go check it out because it was fascinating, and we'll be doing it again early in 2026. We'll be doing it twice a year where we will update the data twice a year and see what's going on. And so the data we looked at for the first industry report that we launched in October, that was for January through June. We'll have the full year's data probably in March is what I'm guessing the next report will come out. And we discovered some really interesting things that I think painted, or at least added some data to what I think business owners across this industry have been feeling. Because what I do know is that feelings are not always connected, or they're not always validated by data, right? Where your business can feel a certain way or the industry can feel a certain way, but the data may show something different. And that's a big part of what we do at Evolve Finance. The way we organize our clients' financial data and deliver it to them from a reporting standpoint is meant to help them understand what's going on with their money. And the amount of times I've talked to clients that thought their businesses were crap and were falling apart and they wanted to quit. And I'm like, your numbers look great. What are you talking about? It is shocking because I think there can be such a disconnect from the emotional component of running a business and the actual financial data component of it. And business owners, a lot of the times, will beat themselves up and things will sometimes look a lot better on paper than maybe they feel. But from an industry-wide standpoint, I do think that the data is backing up that it's been a crap year. Now, based on what I've seen over the last couple years, it's really kind of been a rough go since, I don't know, the end of 2022, start of 2023, and every year's been a little more challenging since then. And there's a multitude of reasons for that I go into in the industry report, but a lot of that had to do with two big factors that I think are pretty well known. Number one, if you are running a business online where you're relying on Facebook ads or social media engagement to generate leads for your business, even if you have a brick and mortar business or a physical product based business, you probably saw a hit after the pandemic, because during the pandemic, everyone was home. Everyone was spending a lot of time online because they weren't going out. And so we saw a huge boom as people were bored and still mostly had jobs and were still making money. We saw a big boom in the online space. People had more time for hobbies, for personal development, for just buying stuff because we were all looking to alleviate our boredom. And we saw a big boom in the online space where a lot of our clients at Evolve Finance saw massive growth. And then once people were able to get out into the world again, we saw engagement online drop quite a bit. And people were tired of being on their computers. They were tired of looking at social media. And also Facebook ads got really expensive around that time as well due to changes in iOS with cookie tracking and just Facebook, like Meta being the most popular advertising platform, ads just getting more expensive due to more competition, more people trying to advertise their businesses. So over the last couple of years, we've seen lead generation get much more difficult for our clients because it's more expensive, and also engagement is down so much across social platforms, across email, things like that. Again, there's always going to be some businesses that grew during that period of time and have had success since 2022, and I get that. But that's not the norm. At least that's not what we've seen. That's not what I've heard from our clients and their networks and communities of business owners. So by doing this industry report, we wanted to get a little more input than just like looking at sporadically looking at clients' business, their P&L, their business P&Ls, and hearing what their complaints are. And there were a couple things that really stood out. And again, I really recommend you get the industry report and watch the webinar. Again, it's for free. Click the link in the description here to get access to that. But the biggest takeaway is small businesses are getting hit hard right now. And so what we consider smaller businesses at Evolve Finance are clients doing less than $500,000 a year in revenue. They by far are being hurt by this economy and this shift in consumer behavior and this shift in the online space more than anyone. Now, the medium-sized businesses, which we would consider 500,000 to $1 million, those businesses have actually done okay. That's where we saw a lot of clients grow and move up that tier, as well as stay pretty profitable. That was the most profitable tier. And then our seven-figure clients got hit really hard in 23 and 24, but in 25, I'd say this is the year they stabilized. So for a lot of these businesses that were doing $1 million to $10 million in this space, they got hit before 25. They weren't seeing revenue go down in 25 for the first time. Their revenue was starting to go down in 23 and 24. And pretty significantly, we saw some of those businesses shrink by 20 to 50%. But the reality is, if you have a $4 million business and now it's a $2 million business, as long as you're willing to adjust your expenses and your expectations and put your ego aside, you still have a $2 million business that could be making $200,000 to $500,000 a year in profit, which is obviously a pretty good living for the majority of people. But when you have a small business, if you were doing $250,000 a year in revenue and now you're doing 90, it doesn't matter how good your profit margin is. You're probably not bringing home nearly as much money. And we have seen a lot of small businesses really see their businesses do a lot worse than that. Go from $250,000 to where they're making $30,000, $40,000 in revenue for the year as they're trying to figure things out. Now, I think there's a multitude of factors here. I do think some of these smaller businesses, they get burnt out. They sometimes, personal things come up. A lot of people have had, I've seen more business owners take more space and time for personal things than I've ever seen, whether it's mental health, whether it's to focus on family. Those things are important too. And when you're running a small business and everything revolves around you and you don't really have a team and you don't really have reliable lead sources, if you take your foot off the pedal even a little bit, you're going to see revenue drop considerably. But also generating leads, as I've said, as I said at the start of this podcast, generating leads is harder than it's ever been. And so if you're a smaller business, you probably don't have a huge audience that you can leverage, that you were able to pay for that audience through cheaper Facebook ads, or back when social media content went viral more easily, or blog posting actually mattered and Google SEO was easier to attain. There's a multitude of reasons why some people have big audiences right now, but it is harder to build an audience around your business, especially if you're doing some sort of an influencer model. It's tough. It's tougher than it's ever been. So if you're a small business, that's what we saw at Evolve Finance. We had a really large exodus of clients at the end of 24 and the start of 2025, and very few of them were 7-figure or high 6-figure businesses. The vast majority, 80, 90% of them, were businesses that were under that $500,000 threshold, and now were struggling so much that they were having to do the bookkeeping themselves, or start doing it in a spreadsheet, or find someone on Upwork to do it for $150 a month or something like that. So that was the obvious piece, but that mid 6-figure to high 6-figure range, that was really interesting. I share more of my thoughts about that in the industry report and on 7-figure businesses. But as a whole, for the sake of this podcast, small businesses are getting hit, and larger businesses have had to reshape their expenses and rethink how their businesses operate, which I think in the long run will actually help a lot of these businesses. But you have to be able to survive economic conditions like this, to get the benefits down the road. If the economic conditions are such that your business just can't make it through, then you're not going to be able to reap any of the rewards from streamlining, learning how to run a leaner business, reconnecting with your clients, all the stuff that can happen when a recession happens, and it allows you to refocus your business and streamline some things. But I will say, I think until the economy gets better, consumers are going to be strapped for cash. We're watching, we have been watching for really a couple decades now, the middle class in America shrink. And that means there's less consumers with disposable income to pay for services and goods. And given the amount of inflation we've seen, driven by the pandemic, and the shutdowns across the world, plus just economic policies and things like that. In America, the tariffs, all of these things is making everything even more expensive after already having seen a tremendous amount of inflation, like some record inflation over the last 5 years, really since 2020. So in essence, what that means is life is getting more expensive, and we're not really seeing wages following along with that. So if consumers don't have extra cash, then especially depending on what it is you sell, if what you sell is a luxury good or it's a nice to have but not a necessity, it can make selling your offer way harder. And I think that's what we've seen across the board is there's very few of our clients where I feel like we've talked to them and they said, oh yeah, like selling my offer is like shooting fish in a barrel. It's harder to get people to pull out their wallets. And I understand as business owners, a lot of us want to take responsibility for that by saying, okay, we got to improve our marketing tactics and our sales tactics, and we just have to be better. And yes, that's true in a more competitive market. You do have to get better and you have to find a way to separate yourself from the pack. But also, sometimes markets suck and businesses won't get through it. Not every business is going to survive. So I think that, again, in the entrepreneur community and a lot of business coaches will say, well, adapt and adjust. And yes, you have to do those things, but also sometimes economic conditions can be so tough that smaller businesses just can't get through it. I mean, we've seen large businesses, sink, massive corporations who just don't adapt fast enough, who don't adjust enough, or simply their business model can't survive in the economic climate that they're in. So until I think we see the economy improve, which we're not really sure when that's going to happen, when, we see more money get in the pockets of the middle class and lower class so that they have extra cash to spend, small businesses are going to struggle, especially small businesses that don't have clear, focused value propositions with their offers that solve real tangible problems and are able to do so efficiently and with the lowest cost of customer acquisition. I mean, that's what every business wants. Like essentially what I said is have a really good product and find a way to market it for as cheaply as possible. Like that's what every business is trying to do for, the history of business. But in down economies like this, it's more important than ever. So I think in 2025, lead gen was the issue that every business owner is trying to figure out. How do I find my target customer now that ads are more expensive and social media is more challenging? Social media engagement is down. And that is the biggest question everyone wants to know. Now, a lot of the medium to larger size businesses that are still turning a profit and doing well, even if they're not doing as well as the previous years, there's two things that I kind of saw as a trend. Number one, they are a business model where they don't need a large volume of lead generation. So for instance, at Evolve Finance, we don't need to sell 1,000 people a month into our offers. If we're bringing on, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 10 clients a month, that's going to keep our team busy because we're a high touch service. Our offer, while not the most expensive in the market, we're not selling a $100 course, right? We're selling services that cost thousands of dollars a year for our clients. And so we don't need to have a massive lead gen system. We still need lead gen, but not to the degree of someone who was selling a $2,000 course in the past. So the businesses that are doing well right now are the businesses that can deal with slower lead gen, can work off of referrals, who don't need to be funneling in hundreds of new clients a month or hundreds of new leads at least per month. Every business wants more leads, but you can grow slowly. Or the other thing I noticed from last year was that, the businesses that already had large audiences, and again, a lot of our clients probably don't want to call themselves influencers, but that's the best way to describe them. They have a a large audience on social media, a large email list, which corporations have that too. But a lot of the times these are personal brands, or influencer type business models. And if they had a large audience before, that's a huge opportunity, because a lot of the times the algorithms see, okay, who's got a large audience, they're going to push that content out more so. And also those businesses probably already making more money. They can put more resources into social media content creation and into lead gen to keep their businesses at least moving. Even if they're not growing as quickly as they want to, they can still keep some sort of a lead gen system moving, or at the very least squeeze every dollar out of their established audience base already. But again, that goes back to smaller businesses, don't have a large audience base, don't have a consistent lead gen source right now. That's why so many of them are struggling. So that's really what we saw in 2025 as a recap. Again, I go way more into it in the industry report for January through June of 2025. Again, the new one will be coming out. If you actually download and get access to the one from January through June of 2025, you'll be emailed when the next version of it comes out in early 2026. So I highly recommend checking that out. I go into way more detail around what we're seeing across all these different business sizes. So that leads me to 2026. What do we think is going to happen? What does 2026 have in store for us? And so I wanted to share just a little bit of what I'm seeing, and also just what I'm anticipating, just kind of guessing. And so the first thing is, businesses have two choices for next year. You either are trying to just stay afloat and wait out this tough economic, these tough economic conditions. I call it a recession because it is a recession, I think, for the middle and lower classes. It's not a recession for the very wealthy, because stock prices are still doing okay. The stock market's still doing okay. There are a lot of signs that the stock market might not be so okay in 2026, but that typically doesn't affect the average American. A lot of people, their stocks are only for their retirement. They're not living off of it. So it's either going to affect older Americans who are already retired, or it's going to affect really, really wealthy people and corporations. But we're already seeing layoffs across major corporations. Literally, as I'm recording this week, Verizon let go of a ton of people. There's other tech giants letting go of people. Like, the job market is rough right now. So, I call it a recession. I think we're in a recession, even if the media or the government has yet to call it that. So in a recession, you either play defense and wait it out and hope your business will survive, or you got to adapt and change. And that, I think, is going to be the big thing for most online businesses this year. If you've been trying to run your business the same way you always have over the last 2 to 3 years, and you're not seeing any headway, how are you going to change? How are you going to adapt? Where do you find opportunity for your business in the given market, in the given conditions? Now, for some of you, you might go, cool, I'm going to find new opportunities. I'm going to go big, and I'm going to really try to capitalize on this. Great. But for some businesses, the answers might not be as clear in terms of what adapting and changing and pivoting in this new market, in this new economy. And so I just want to give everyone here permission. It is okay to have a lighter forecast for 2026 and focus on profitability. And for a lot of clients that we work with at Evolve Finance, that means they're simplifying their business models. They're kind of scrapping maybe their old, sophisticated, complicated sales funnels, and they're really focusing on delivering true value to a smaller group of people, maybe at a higher price. We're seeing more businesses do go back to one-on-one services, and not trying to play the volume game with memberships and courses and sponsorship income and things like that. That's okay. Like, again, this is sometimes the things we have to do to get through rough economies, especially if your customers are strapped for cash. Or I was just talking with a client last week about how their business has typically gotten funding from governmental organizations and nonprofits and things like that. And those businesses, like those organizations and entities are seeing their funding dry up right now. So this is where you really got to look at your situation and go, what are the risks? What are the opportunities? And is it time to make a change? Like sometimes make significant changes, which I've seen a multitude of clients truly make massive shifts in who they serve, how they serve them, in order to meet their customers with where they're at in this moment in time. And so what we're also seeing and even experiencing ourselves at Evolve Finance, I can share more about what we've seen in our own business, our own firm, and how we're shifting in this economy. But we are going to see a lot more businesses go upstream. And what I mean by that is they are going to reposition their offers for the market that has money, because again, just it's really happening globally. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. Like the middle class is evaporating. So, and not just in America, but in a lot of different countries. And that means, okay, a lot of businesses are going to look for who's got the money. Let's target our offers to them. So I think we're going to see a trend in 2026. I mean, every business wants to serve the people that have the most amount of money. Of course, I get it. Like you don't want to try to serve people that don't have money. But given that we have the internet, there's a multitude of ways to serve people and to make money directly and indirectly. And so, again, I think going upstream will make sense for a lot of businesses. That's something we've inadvertently ran into at Evolve Finance. While so many of our maybe smaller six-figure clients have struggled and left our services, we've had an influx of more high six-figure and seven-figure businesses come our way, because those businesses were maybe spending a ton on CFO services or these really fancy, expensive accounting services like wealth management firms. And now they're going like, you're overcharging me and I'm not getting the value. Is there something better? And so word gets out about our tax service and our bookkeeping and the level of service we deliver, and we're getting larger clients. So we're replacing a larger volume of smaller clients with a smaller volume of higher paying big clients. And so that's not something we necessarily tried to do, because financial inclusivity is one of our values at Evolve Finance, which is why we want to get Profit Pillars, the book, out there. It's why we have some low cost courses on our website for those that want to grab them. But otherwise, like, it's the people with money that need our services the most. So I think you're going to see a lot of coaches talk about this, move upstream and, tailor your services to people with more money. And I get that, but also remember, like, there's, a lot of content creators out there who deliver free content. They deliver what they know for free instead of selling it in a course in order to build a large audience and get sponsorship deals and things like that, royalties and affiliate income, which can also be super viable, but it's a volume game. And so I think for 2026, we're all going to have to decide, are we truly in the game of content creation? Are we willing to play that game in order to drive volume? Or are we going to be a business that serves a smaller volume of clients at a higher price, or a smaller volume of customers at a higher price? Neither one is right or wrong. You just got to figure out what makes sense for your business. And I think that's going to be a decision that more businesses have to make in 2026. And again, I think a lot of businesses are also going to have to look at, like, with the current market conditions, is there really as much demand for how I currently sell my offers, how I package my offers? Do I have to rethink how I'm communicating my offer and positioning and creating messaging around my offer? Because I think a lot of business owners go, well, I have my messaging locked down. It's worked for years. Yeah, it worked for years in a different economy, in a different economic environment and political environment and social environment. It's not the same world we're in. So I think we're going to see a lot of businesses really have to rethink and reposition their offers, if not change up their offers pretty considerably to really meet the market with where it's at, where consumers are at. And again, a lot of consumers are struggling. But I think content creation is going to continue to be a must. I've already seen a big push again into paid traffic. Not to the degree that we're seeing all of our clients spent nearly as much money on paid traffic as they used to. But I think that there's an acceptance that like, this is how much ads cost now, but there's also been some headway around, okay, how do we run paid traffic better? I think a lot of agencies and marketers have figured out some ways to get better returns on ads. So the businesses that have the means to be able to at least experiment with ads, I think we're just going to continue to see people, experiment with paid traffic, whether it's on Meta or on other platforms. But I think we're going to see a lot more experimentation with that in terms of lead gen. I mean, it used to be only Facebook and Instagram, and I'm seeing clients that do well on LinkedIn or have massive followings on TikTok, or, are finding other ways to generate leads. And I guess TikTok doesn't count because we're not seeing as much advertising on that, but we've seen more Google ads and things like that. There's more platforms that I think business owners are exploring beyond just Meta, out of just necessity to find other cheaper ways or more effective ways to generate cold traffic. So I think we're going to see a bigger push into advertising next year, and businesses just figuring out how to make it work. But like I said, content creation, I think, is going to continue to be a must, much like I'm doing right now with our podcast and the reels that will come out of this podcast. And I think you're going to see more and more people really take their content creation more seriously. It's been a trend over the last couple of years. I know that's not a bold statement, but I think that's just the reality of trying to find our audiences and our customers. But I also think we're going to see a lot more business owners get comfortable with lower forecasts right now, and just going, hey, I might not be able to double or triple my business this year, and just being a little more conservative, which again, I know a lot of business coaches might disagree with that, but I'm not saying that these businesses should, their long-term outlook should be, my business is going to fall apart and I'm never going to grow again. But again, we got to look at 2026, look at what your specific niche, like what's going on in your niche, what's going on with your customers, what is the reality, what is a realistic guess around where you think your revenue is going to come from next year, and is it going to be that much more than last year? And we should always be putting pressure on ourselves to look for any growth we can, but also, I don't think we're going to see as many business owners going, I'm going to go from 200,000 to $1 million next year. Will some businesses do that? Of course. It's always like to do that caveat, but I think we're going to see a lot more business owners kind of settle into the fact that, again, if you started your business before, especially before the pandemic or during the pandemic, that we're not in those conditions anymore. I just think we're going to see more business owners settle into, okay, this is the game board I'm playing the game on. I got to figure out a different strategy. And in the meantime, I'm going to be a little more conservative around my revenue targets until I feel like I've got the rules of the game down and my strategy really locked down. And then the last thing is, I think AI is just going to continue to make being a business owner very confusing. AI is helping in a lot of ways. It's also making a mess in a lot of ways. And my concern is, given how much like OpenAI is losing, how unprofitable they are right now, I'm not the first to think this, but I worry if they increase their prices for developers that are using ChatGPT in their other softwares, we could see software costs increase dramatically, making AI very cost ineffective to utilize in our businesses, or at the very least, it's going to eat into our margins as AI gets more expensive to utilize, because there is so much capital and funding going into AI software right now across the board in all kinds of different ways. That's what's propping up the industry. And there's not really a clear path to profitability there. So I do think that there is a lot of risk here. I'm not saying you shouldn't use AI. I'm not saying we have a lot of control over that. But it would not surprise me if all of a sudden next year, all the AI software, not even just ChatGPT directly, but any other software you're using that is connected to ChatGPT as its AI engine, I'd be worried about the cost of that going up pretty significantly and what that's going to mean for the cost of our businesses. And again, I think there's just still so much up in the air around AI and what the ways it needs to be regulated, and also just the quality of what it does, and the quality of work it's putting out. And I think a lot of the over promising, under delivering that a lot of AI softwares are doing, it's just going to create volatility around that. So it's going to be annoying because we have to pay attention to it as business owners. It's going to have a massive effect on our businesses, but also, it sucks having to try to figure out how much of this is this really the future? Is this going to last? Is this going to stay cheap? All those things. I think that's going to continue to cloud the market and cloud a lot of the business education out there around the importance of AI, while also feeling annoyed that it doesn't work as well as sometimes we'd like it to, and that it could potentially get a lot more expensive to utilize. So this episode already went so much longer than I was thinking, but obviously I had a lot of thoughts here, and I hope this sparks some conversation. Please, again, in the comments, I want to know what y'all thought about 2025. Where do you think 2026 is going? I think the more we can kind of chew on this together, the better strategies and plans we can have for 2026. But like I said, please go click the link in the description if you're watching this video. Check out our 2025 online business industry report for January through June. It's free to download, free to watch the webinar with it. It's our way to give back to the community and hopefully help more business owners put together better plans so they can make more money in the future. As always, thank you so much for listening. I hope you had a great 2025. I hope you have a great start to 2026, and I'll talk to you soon.